what happened there. That was in the early 60s. So just as we have, not that James Holmes was in the military, but there was his father.
Well, his father was working with DARPA in cognitive development sciences. And that is the military. That's the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. And DARPA is the tip of the spear when it comes to spooky mind control and military technologies. And in fact, his father was working on the so-called super soldier program, transhumanism, taking the human body and the human senses and enhancing them through cybernetics, cyborg technology, and so forth to produce a super soldier, someone who could kill people more effectively. And then his son, who's also working in the neurosciences, shoots up a theater under the illusion that he had been talking about for years, that he was the Joker. So go ahead.
No, that's correct. And you have, you could look, there's so many layers to this onion of what happened at that theater in Aurora. And going back to through the Holmes family, you have, I would say, there is a political link with the current administration, with the president's links to a congressman in the district that is represented in Aurora. He was there in 2006. What's interesting is that Dr. Robert Holmes, that would be James Holmes's father, his father was involved in what they think are some
military intelligence, is that correct?
Yeah, military intelligence with the Turks in Turkey.
Yeah, he took advanced language training and was sent to Turkey, which is a crucial NATO ally. It's on the front lines with the Soviet Union. So when someone in the military takes advanced language lessons and gets sent to Turkey, they are military intelligence.
Well, right, and what got me to thinking was that President Obama's mother there's pictures showing her of being possibly in Lebanon. They think that Stanley Armour Dunham, that was the grandfather of the president, was in a similar program in the Middle East. So you have these connections there. But, that's just one part of it. So there may be a link with Colorado. You have Buckley Air Force Base, which, as I was looking into it, let's see, well, I can't find it right now, but they have space-based weaponry programs. They study all sorts of things related to space. It's very secretive.
And here's another thing about these shootings. They've both occurred in counties where the police departments and the sheriff's departments are heavily militarized. Aurora obviously just made headlines before the shooting a couple weeks before, when Judge Napolitano called them out and said that their unconstitutional and illegal detainment of dozens of people at a road stop looking for a bank robbery suspect. Napolitano called them out,
which is
on
a surprise coming from her.
Yeah, from him. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the police officers were going barrel first, searching cars, women, family, children. And then we look at the Tucson shooting, which happened in Pima County, Arizona, which, of course, is where the Jose Guerrera shooting happened, where a SWAT team shot a Marine over 100 times because he was responding to a disturbance outside his house when they did a no-knock search warrant for frivolous reasons. It was probably an illegal warrant, and they found nothing incriminating to indicate this honorable man who had served his country and the military was a criminal at all. So we're seeing like this justification of the police state because these events are happening in these areas where there's a lot of federal grant money controlling the methods and methodology and how law enforcement deals with the people.
Well, on reddirtreport.com, I linked a story from the Oklahoman, the large daily newspaper here in Oklahoma City, ironically owned by Philip Anschutz now, where
of the Anschutz medical facility.
Exactly. So you have that strange connection. But the top story is Feds arrest Oklahoma high school student who bought guns, talked of hiding bodies. So you already have this copycat effect taking place, and that's something that a guy I follow, his name's Lauren Coleman. He writes a blog called the Twilight Language Blog. He had been actually talking about something possibly happening July 20th. It's a little strange, but he said it was a Bane connection, the villain in the new Batman film, And of course, Bain Capital, which has been in the news because of the connections with Mitt Romney, the Republican presidential
candidate. More the connections. Mitt Romney ran it. Bain Capital.
Well, exactly.
And when someone releases a movie in 2012, which is an election year, featuring a Bain character, the writers, I mean, they're not operating in a cocoon. They know what's going on in the world. I think there's a reason for that.
Right. And if you look at some of the promotional films for like Mountain Dew, Soda Pop, there is very strange backwards sort of reverse filming techniques taking place in this film while incorporating scenes from the Batman film and some strange things being repeated over and over. Could that have been a trigger thing? What was the thing?
Well, at the very least, I think these things are implanted in the public consciousness beforehand, these little seeds that will sprout once they're given nourishment by the attack, perhaps. We're seeing that time and time again. The predictive programming is to activate these triggers. I mean, what we're looking at, people, is this is the year 2012. This is 21st century, and MK Ultra, as we knew it, as we know it in the public domain, supposedly ended in the late 60s. We know this to be untrue, but the technology has been developing since at least 50 years ago. When we were told it stopped. We know that it's grown very advanced, very sophisticated. They're not just pulling things out of the wind these days. They have a proven methodology, and they don't take any shortcuts. They have manuals for this stuff. And I have no doubt that at the very least, the timing of this is fishy. The circumstances are fishy. We have eyewitness accounts. And obviously, one must always take eyewitness accounts with a grain of salt. Right. This is part of the investigatory process. We've dealt with this ourselves in investigating the Oklahoma City bombing. A lot of times you deal with eyewitness accounts that don't quite match up, and that's human nature. But you do not discard these eyewitness accounts without reason. And until the official agencies come up with a very good reason to discard the reports, multiple, of someone receiving a phone call inside the theater before the shooting, and then propping open the door, I have to say that there's probably substance to that if they are discarding it.
Well, there was something I wrote about in fact, in the days prior to the shooting, and it had to do with the, as you may recall, in 1984, July 18th, 1984, there was a massacre at a McDonald's restaurant in San Ysidro, California, which is a suburb of San Diego. Of course, we know about the military influence in that area. Oh, yes.
I was based in Camp Pendleton, just north of San Diego.
Right. So you had James Huberty shoot up the McDonald's, children, men, women, everybody. 22 were killed, I believe, as I recall. I remember that distinctly that summer because it was right before the Olympics. Everyone was watching, waiting for the Olympics to start. And so you have a major massacre happen in the U.S. in a city-controlled, really military-influenced community.
It's military controlled.
Yeah. So, and then you have this happening, I believe, 7 days before, about 7 or 8 days before the Olympics start. This time in London, which I've been writing about as well. And of course, there's a lot of people are very on edge about this particular Olympics this year because of threats of terrorism and so forth. And
of course, Alex and his team have done an excellent job in exposing the security lapses and perhaps purposeful lapses in the security with G4S in London, and the whistleblower talking about the fact that security was a joke, that they were, literally just walking guns and knives through these scanners that weren't even turned on, that it was just a big charade, and that they actually spent more time talking about a proposed evacuation of London in the event of a major terrorist attack, like this was a probability, not just a contingency plan. They spent more time talking about that. The whole thing about the London Olympics is that we're seeing a lot of indications that something may happen, which makes me look at it we haven't really, most of the predictive programming that has been discovered is usually after the fact. Now, is because of all this information from London coming out because we're getting better? Or is it some kind of advanced disinfo program? I don't know. We'll see. I don't make predictions because, obviously that can go wrong. But if something does happen in London, and we have the shooting, just like in the San Ysidro shooting in the early 80s, right before the LA Olympics. And if they're doing that, obviously that is to repeat the formula. And that was one of the first modern mass shootings, and a lot of gun control action was taken after that. So one cannot deny the timing on so many levels.
Well, and as you and Chris and I know, we respect Dave McGowan's work, his book, Program to Kill. I always use that as a reference book because he is very thorough in his investigation of mass murder, serial killers, and so forth.
Exactly.
So that is a good reference.
We're going to break right now, folks. We'll be right back after this. You're listening to The Alex Jones Show. Welcome back to The Alex Jones Show. We are talking to Andrew Griffin of the RedDirtReport.com. We are discussing the shooting in Tucson, Arizona. Its likely connections to mind control and its likely agenda. Andrew, what do you see in the future? What do you see developing in terms of gun control right now? I mean, that appears to be the agenda. Everything. The gun control treaty, Fast and Furious, which is a big deal. They had to have something to overcome Fast and Furious. That's the thing. Whenever the feds get their hands caught dirty with blood on their hands, just like Oklahoma City, which was 2 years after Waco, they have to come up with another attack that they instigate on their own to cover up the blood they have shed. And frankly, I think that Aurora is their cover, trying to make us ignore the blood they have on their hands from at least 2,000 people who have perished at the hands of guns that were smuggled into Mexico by the largest gun smuggler in American history, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. So what do you see, Andrew?
Well, as I noted earlier, Lauren Coleman of the Twilight Language blog, he's followed this thread basically with what's going on in Aurora. He calls it a Red Dawn event. If you know the name Colorado, color red. You have Aurora meaning dawn. You have so you see something there on a more synchromystical level, and I think that they use that as a trigger moment to yes, I think come after guns, but I also think they want a confrontation. I think that's what they're building towards. You see so many things happening, especially along the U.S.-Mexico border. The border's wide open, yet we're sending troops overseas still to Afghanistan and trying to keep that disaster ongoing. Everything you would think they would do, they're doing the exact opposite. So clearly it's going to bring us to a breaking point where I think something big is going to happen. I think this was just part of that greater operation, and that there will be more in the near future.
It's a strategy of tension.
Strategy of tension, absolutely. That's what I see. And just talking to regular people, they sense something. They sense something major is wrong around the world. I heard the song "Ball of Confusion" by the Temptations yesterday, and it made me think. The lyrics talk about just things are just out of control. No one knows what's going on. You have politicians saying that they're gonna save you or do this or that. And they don't
2012 is in large part being at least pumped up as some kind of pivotal year, and it is in many ways. Of course, it's not the end of the world as we know it. I'm not getting into the Mayan prophecies at all, but on many levels it is. We have the presidential election. We have the economy that is on the tipping point. I mean, it's being artificially sustained right now just to keep us afloat through the election, so it doesn't affect the politics too much, because they do have an agenda to get through. And I do think they want Obama to serve a second term, because just think of what he's got away with in the first term. When he's in the second term and he's a lame duck and he's got nothing to lose, boy, watch out. And if gun control gets passed, implementing the health care program, it's going to be an interesting time. But you're right.
And you all mentioned the Martin Bryant shooting in Tasmania in the 90s. Look what happened in Australia right after that.
One shooting. It's not like Australia had suffered a rash of gun crimes. That's never occurred there. But then after one outrageous shooting under impossible circumstances, I recall one of the special forces officers saying that was better shooting than he could do. We're out of time, Andrew. As always, it's been great. Give the audience your website.
Yeah, it's Red Dirt Report, RedDirtReport.com.
Thank you for joining us. You're listening to The Alex Jones Show. We'll be right back after this with Stephanie Sledge. Back to The Alex Jones Show. That first hour flew by.
Sure did.
Because we are presenting powerful, hard